everybody. My name is Dr. Saxena, and I'm excited to introduce you to another superhero patient that we have had the pleasure of serving at Forum Health Tampa. This is JC. Now, he's not Jay-Z, he's JC, and I think that you will find his story quite compelling and, I'm hoping, freaking inspiring. Okay, no pressure, JC. You just got to be who you're going to be. All right, so I'm going to give you a quick little, no, actually, I'm not going to give the quick little blurb. I'm going to ask JC, can you tell us what you want to tell us about who you were, like what were you dealing with when you first came to see a functional integrative doc like us? And we're talking about this last time that you came to start with us. Does that sound good? You just give them a little blurb about, you know, a little bit about you.
Well, I just come off, one of my siblings had passed away, so it kind of put me in a panic mode. So I checked my blood pressure, which was extremely high. My blood sugar was well over 250. So even though I had dropped just a little bit of weight, I was just starting to get a little worried at it, and just taking pills every day was not what I wanted to do. So I wanted to talk to Dr. Saxena to see if there would be some other path that I could go down to start bringing down my numbers.
Yeah, and you're like many people, like you kind of knew something was up. You were doing some diet and exercise, losing some weight, but life was happening at the same time. And then something made you think like, I really need to take a look at these things a bit more seriously because I can't ignore them. And I surely don't love the options that have been presented to me with pharmaceuticals and pharmaceuticals and pharmaceuticals. And although they can help, it just wasn't what you were interested in long term.
Oh, that is correct. I was definitely trying to at least wean myself off the pharmaceuticals because I was noticing they weren't really working.
Yeah.
You know, I was taking blood sugar medicine, I was taking blood pressure medicine, and they were both very high. So I just wanted to do something else. I was still doing some exercise, swimming, walking, nothing was seen to help.
It wasn't enough. Yeah. Okay. So you brought up a great point. Like you were doing the pharmaceutical bit and it wasn't enough. And the strategy wasn't, so take more.
Correct.
Yeah.
And every doctor I had been to before would just, here, take this, here, take this. There wasn't any plan or anything like that. So
yeah.
I was looking for more.
So then you come into our office, and our office is a little different because we're all about plan. We're all about talking. We're all about getting in your business and understanding like the way you live your life. And we kind of heard your story about what you're dealing with from a stress component. And at that time, we didn't even know COVID was going to be hitting, right? Yep. So you were dealing with a family stress and just this medical stress. And we put you on the GDRX program where you had to follow a specific, what's called anti-inflammatory elimination diet. And we also coached you, which is a big difference. Like we had coaches available for you to learn how to do the nutrition part and to keep doing your exercise portion while we were tracking your blood pressures and blood sugars. So tell us, what was that like for you? Like, and be truthful, because you don't have to paint it like, and it was easy.
It was very difficult in the beginning. What we did is we went in and cleared out our entire cupboard, our entire refrigerator of all the bad food that we had. We tried to look for stuff that was high on fiber, a little bit more gluten. And right in the beginning, it was difficult. It was hard to do the shakes and then eat something that I guess that your taste buds weren't used to. I guess that would be the nicest way to put
it. Fair. Yeah, your mind wasn't used to it, really.
Exactly. So it was a little hard in the beginning, but then after a while, you know, put a little hot sauce on it, you put a little this and that on it, you know. You start adding a few more things, and the shakes become better. You start adding a few more things to the shakes to make them, you know, round about what your taste buds like. So.
Well, kind of like people who are in our lives, right? Like they don't come in perfect little packages that are exactly how we want them, but there's enough about it that's worth keeping, that you're like, okay, how can I make this person be someone I can be with forever? It's the same thing that you were doing with these shakes or the food plan. Because one of the things that we're big on is like, this isn't something that like, you don't just kind of take on nutrition for a month and think like, that's going to solve everything and I can go back to my previous old habits. It's kind of like I've dedicated my life to eating healthier, and this is kind of the first foray into it. And it's a little bit confronting at first.
Being a very analytical person, I wrote down all my numbers every day. So first few weeks, like I said, it was difficult. But then when you start to see some changes, you start feeling a little bit better about what you're doing, and it really just kind of like all fell together, I guess. The food started tasting better, the shakes started tasting better, the numbers started looking good. So the body started looking a little bit better.
Yeah. So are you open to sharing, like, if, are you open to sharing your progress in around 4 to 6 weeks, what you remember, like with your numbers or your weight or whatever you're willing to share, for people to get kind of a detailed view of like your dedication and commitment to take this on resulted in what in around 4 to 6 weeks?
Okay, blood pressure was probably 200 over 100. Enough to scare you guys when I first came in. And I was about 198 and, pretty tall, 6 foot, 198. So I didn't look too bad, even though the insides weren't doing very well. Again, blood sugar was over 250. 4 to 6 weeks later, I was about 120 over 77. Blood sugar was probably average was 150. It got as low as like 125, and I got the weight down to 185 to 182.
With no extra pharmaceuticals.
With no extra pharmaceuticals. No.
Exactly. And might you want to share your successes about your cholesterol numbers?
I didn't really follow those as much. I just saw them when you had shown me what they had.
Oh, okay. Well, if it's okay, I will gloat about you and say that you were unscheduled to need a statin medication based on your initial lab set. But because you were so committed to taking on the diet to heal your gut, to detoxify your body, to keep exercising, when we did that for 4 to 6 weeks, and you went from being a D minus on your cholesterol to being nearly a B plus A minus in just 4 to 6 weeks without a pharmaceutical. And that would be unheard of in the world of regular medication or even regular diet and exercise. Because this diet that you are on is different than the typical diet people think to be on, right? Yeah. And so now you just shared with me, because we just had one of our little Zoom doctor appointments just now, that you went on a road trip. How was it for you to have to keep to be in this way of living, like this lifestyle? What did you choose to do and how did it work for you?
We went on a 10-day road trip to go hiking, and we brought all our food. We didn't eat out once in the 10 days.
Now, so did you think you were that person before?
Going on, so eating out, but usually, people cheat and go somewhere like that. But nope, we brought all our food, everything, and actually, when we came home, we only had like one little thing left, so we ate it all too. So.
And do you think you're nuts? Do you think you're nuts for doing that, or do you think it's just a choice?
I think it's just a choice because you really want to keep it going. After a while, it just becomes part of your lifestyle. You would almost feel like you were cheating or feeling bad if you had a big hamburger at McDonald's. Maybe one time, but it's not something that I would want to consistently do anymore.
Out of guilt, or because it's out of choice that you just don't feel well with it, or you know what you're committed to? Like, one of the things that I think is important is that people don't feel restricted in their diet. Like, it becomes a choice that you want to be this way versus, and that's because you know how good it feels now, not because I'm going to be standing over you being like, bad JC, you did not behave, or that, you know, your own conscious makes you feel bad about it. It's like all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I don't like feeling that way. So I could have that burger, but I don't want it this time.
And it just doesn't taste as good. It just feels like that we can make better food now. It's better for you. And that's just like you said, it's your choice. So
Yeah. So what would you say to anybody who's sitting out there dealing with something that's undesirable, like a uncontrolled blood pressure, or diabetes, or cholesterol, or, you know, any condition, rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmunity, thyroid, all of those things? Like they're sitting there thinking, I don't know if I should do this. That seems a little bit too crazy for me to have to change my diet and clean out my fridge and all that. What would you say to somebody like that who's thinking about doing this, but they're a little scared when they hear, it's a lot of change?
well, it's going to be tough in the beginning, but you just have to get your mind right and move forward. And you'll get to see the results in about a month. So, I mean, just keep pushing forward, keep falling forward, and be positive about it and be strong. You can do it.
Yeah, you can do it. And it's exactly what you said. It's about your mind about it. It's like you're capable of doing it. And did it help to have our team supporting you as people and information? Did that make a difference for you? Or do you think like it was all really your mind and you just needed to do it? I mean, I asked not for the sake of getting like a pat on the back, but really for people to understand what made a difference for you.
Oh, definitely, definitely, because you start to fall down. So some of the health coach appointments really help lift me back up. It's like right in the beginning, I was kind of, they call it hangry. So I was hungry and angry at the same time. So yeah, it was a little difficult, but without the, the support, I don't know if I would have made it, but it's definitely something that you have to change within yourself. You have to want to do it.
Yeah. And now, I would report that you don't need us as much. Like we don't have to, for lack of a better word, hold your hand the way we did in the first month, because in that month you came to learn yourself and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So, I mean, not that we're babysitters, but we're there as caretakers. But seems like you made this decision to go on this 10-day trip and figure out what to eat, and you're still exercising, you're doing all of this really on your own. And then now the way you relate to us is like, hey, can you check my numbers and let's see how I'm doing? Like you have a newfound sense of power.
We got back from vacation. I wanted to get my numbers checked, and my wife was like, you still have like a month to go. And I was like, oh darn, I wanted to go early and get them checked, because it's just a good feeling to see a lot of the numbers going down.
And that's that sense that you did it. I mean, which I would assume that prior to doing this, you weren't excited about seeing your numbers. Like you weren't running to the doctor's office to get your numbers checked when you were not under control, because it was like, oh, the doctor's going to tell me I'm bad and is going to put me on more drugs. Like that's the way it is for many people. They're like, I'm going to behave the day before my lab test so my numbers are good. I hear that all the time. They're like, I didn't eat ice cream.
Syndrome. I was afraid to go to the doctor. Didn't want to go. Didn't want to hear what they were. And now I've gone, a complete change that, I'd rather go and find out what they are. So.
JC, thank you so much. I mean, for sharing your story, because I really do think that you are so typical of what many people are dealing with. They've got a concern. They're scared sometimes to work with providers that are just going to kind of scold and then tell you what you have to take in addition as drugs, and it's just not what you're interested in healthcare. I always joke around and say there's two things missing in healthcare: health and care. And you are a shining example of how when you really put your focus on health and you really provide care to a patient, they achieve amazing, amazing results like you did. So thank you so much for being an inspiration. I appreciate your time, your vulnerability, and your courage to share your story. Thank you, JC.
Thank you.